when the world has got you down. And
Alzheimer's sucks. It's an equal opportunity disease that chips away at everything we hold dear. And to date, there's no cure. So until there is, we continue to fight with the most powerful tool in our arsenal, love. This is Love Conquers Alls, a real and really positive podcast that takes a deep dive into everything Alzheimer's, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And now, here are your hosts, Susie Singer-Carter and me, Don Priest.
Hello, everybody. I'm Susie Singer-Carter.
And I'm Don Priest, and this is Love Conquers Alls. Hello, Susan.
Hello, Donald. We're having a delay issue, so...
We are. It's as if I'm in Europe or in maybe Mongolia right now, when I'm literally like 11 feet from you.
Yeah.
And we have this like massive delay, and I think it's intermittent. So it really makes for great broadcasting.
And good conversation. Because then I can just run right over you.
It does. It flows.
It flows so nice. My gosh. Anyway, we'll spare you all this boring crap. But today is going to be exciting. We have going to talk to another incredible advocate for our seniors and their well-being. And it's really fascinating. And it's amazing to keep discovering how many amazing people are out there doing just, work that nobody's really applauding. Like, it's really hard work, right?
Well, because they care. It's just because they care. They care for other people. It's not just about themselves. And, And
sometimes it's a big fat vendetta. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, which it should be. Which is more fun that way.
I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Wow.
Do you remember that movie?
Okay.
Network, remember?
I sure do.
Yeah.
That would be Network.
I just said that, indeed. Network. There goes our delay.
Woohoo!
Anyway, Dawn, what?
Well, let's get to it. Shall I introduce our fabulous guest?
Yeah. Except, can I just out H&M? I'm wearing an H&M sweater that's brand new.
Uh-oh.
And I just put it on because it's a happy color. It's a royal blue that I love. And look.
Oh, my God.
That is not good.
Is that... Maybe it's that your biceps are so big, they just tear through the
material?
Sweater. I don't think that's... Yeah. Let's go with that. It's
I'll go with
very
that.
She-Hulk-like.
Okay. Anywho.
Yeah. See,
please
obvious. We have proof now.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, can we get quality anywhere? That's the question. All right. Go, Dawn. Introduce our amazing guest.
JACKLYN Ryan is a successful realtor and a USA Today and Wall Street Journal best-selling author whose world was turned upside down when her parents were no longer able to take care for themselves. She was thrown into the deep, dark wormhole of senior healthcare without warning or knowledge. After caring for her dad for over 5 years and her mom under hospice care for 6 months, JACKLYN quickly learned the world of home healthcare agencies is riddled with what she calls inappropriate and unscrupulous scaretakers. Armed with her and others' powerful personal stories, plus extensive research on this undeniable problem, JACKLYN is sharing this life-changing information through her enlightening and often gut-wrenching book, Caregivers Scaretakers, Exposing Fraud in Senior Care. A sought-after speaker, consultant, and workshop presenter, JACKLYN hopes to revise the process for those looking for appropriate and trustworthy care for their loved ones. And we're so looking forward to sharing her journey today with you. So, without further ado, let's say hello to JACKLYN Ryan.
Hi, Dawn. Hi, Susie.
Hi, Jackie. Hi, Jackie. So happy to have you on Love Conquers Alls. I feel like we're very kismet. I feel like, you call yourself a reluctant expert in the field of senior advocacy, right? And
Yes.
I second that emotion.
Yes.
So deeply, because I have become this staunch advocate and, unwittingly, right?
Yes. Yes, we have our life, and then something happens, and it's a life-changing moment, isn't it?
Yes,
That
it is.
forever
And
says.
either you embrace it like you and I, and which is and there's no judgment, either you do and you want to, and for me it's been a way of dealing with this situation that I just find incredibly shocking. Like I was sucker punched, by learning how our system really works.
Horrible.
um, and I just, and the way for me to grieve my loss of my mom is to, vindicate her a bit, and everybody else that has been in this situation, and hopefully, you know hopefully
By the time
create.
we're 20, 40, 30 years from now, somebody's going to be taking better care of us.
Let's hope, God
Yes.
willing. So yes, and other people, I get it, will just go, I've done my job. I did well. And I also say that was you, whoever, if that's your choice, I applaud that too, right?
Yes.
Because that is not that maybe that's not your purpose, and that's okay. That's okay too. We all have to find out what lane we need to be in. And
Yes.
this for me feels good, and it sounds like it feels really good for you as well,
Yes.
because yeah, you wrote a book with a great title. I love titles, you know, caretaker, no, caregiver, scaretaker.
Caretakers.
So
Yes.
before we were recording, you said to me, we are both similar. We're almost doing things in parallel, but you're doing it from the inside and I'm on the outside. So explain what you mean.
Well, I'm more focused on the home care agencies. My parents never went to a nursing home, so to speak, maybe rehab after the hospital. I saw enough of that there. But the home care agencies, it really is like the Wild West. It really still is. There's no regulatory oversight of these home care agencies. There's not. And I don't know how to open an agency. I guess I just could get licensed. Maybe I'll be background checked, but my workers are supposed to be background checked, but are they really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, in my career of commercial real estate, I have sold real estate in the state of Texas and the state of Arkansas, and in both states, I have been fingerprinted and background checked. So even if I was not in your house, Susie, and sell your little piece of dirt in LA, and I'm not even in a house, I have been fingerprinted and background checked. And so everybody needs to be aware of the real estate associations do require that of people, of us, coming into your home or selling a piece of dirt, not even being in your home. However, the people coming into our vulnerable loved ones' homes to take care of them while they're sitting there incapacitated might not be background checked, and they are not fingerprinted in the state of Arkansas. I cannot speak for the other states. I am working on legislators here in my state to get laws passed to require fingerprinting and background checks on an annual basis.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting because I was looking at, your list of complaints, for lack of a better word, and it mirrors what's going on in the facilities. And when so much so, like you said, well, I love what you say about raising the bar on caregivers. We'll raise the bar on the quality of care. Well, that goes without saying, right? I mean, we are severely understaffed despite CMS's, most recent edict of minimum staffing, which is well below what we really need. And that was just all performative and optical illusions to have everybody go, oh yay, CMS is doing something. Baby steps after 50 years. So but and they are not, and so the people that the quality of care is you know it's rare now because they're not being paid enough, because they're not given enough training,
Right?
and that's what's going on. And the people that are very good at their job, don't want to work there anymore because it's not a healthy place for them to thrive as caregivers, providers, correct?
Correct. They care. You can't care. They can care too much where it hurts their heart, where they see, and they have to leave. And
Mm-hmm.
so then our loved ones are in a place at the loss of somebody else to be taking care of them. And it's interesting, Susie, is I have two friends who are RNs who train nurses. So they are in the interim, not necessarily coming into a nursing home by no means. It might be into the hospital or to a doctor's or something, and they train the nurses. And I said, can you tell in the first few days whether these people really care or won't care? And they said, oh, yes, we can tell if they will care or won't care.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the care of humanity, go do something else. Go get in the numbers. Go do a desk job. Don't care for humanity then if you can't care.
You said there's no oversight, or regulations for the home care industry. Now, when we're talking about facilities, nursing homes, and long-term care, we say there's no oversight and there's no regulations. But what we're really saying is there's some regulations, but there's no oversight and or very little oversight. And the oversight that's there is, again, to quote myself, is performative and optic. And for the most part, if there is any kind of, penalty that's happened because it's just blatant, it's at the best a slap on the hand and the cost of doing business for the people that are doing the infractions.
Yes, an instance comes to mind. I have an elderly gentleman friend, and his wife had Parkinson's in a nursing home up here. And this 86-year-old man was setting traps in his wife's room. Now, what does that mean? So he's a sly dog. He's sly. So he would put a cup someplace on the table or something. Or he would put a pin someplace, and he'd come in the next day to see if the cup had been moved, to see if his wife had been changed, to see if she'd been given a cup of water. He was setting traps, this 86-year-old man, and he had a list of complaints. I said, I will go with you if you like, but I will go with you to talk to the administrator about that. So here's this 86-year-old man setting traps in a room.
Right. Well, I don't doubt it. I mean, many people are completely cognitively, adept and have their wits about them. They may just have, a physical ailment that it is impeding their functionality. But so are they? But is there no regulation then? Is what you're saying? Because I think that's what I've heard, is that there is no federal regulations on home care.
That is so correct. Federal. It's state by state. Actually, and a gentleman I came across who owned one of the agencies I wrote about in my book, which he didn't know that at the time, and he was saying, he was the one that told me, there's no regulatory oversight on them, and I didn't know. Now, if the agencies accept Medicaid, then DHS might get involved. But
what is DHS? Can you tell, just so in case someone doesn't know?
Services, Adult Protective Services. And I'm going to bring up a picture of my dad for a example, because I called DHS after my dad had fallen at his house with his black eye and stitches in his head. And
bless
so
his heart.
I called DHS a couple times. They finally came out. They went down. They interviewed him. Of course, a caregiver was there. I don't know which one. But no, they did not file a report. No, it was okay. Hey, he's being fed. He's got a roof over his head. He said he's fine. So there you go. No, DHS would not do anything. No. In fact, in one of my chapters, DHS forcibly removed a 91-year-old woman from her home here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Her 3 adult sons were out of state. A caregiver that was taking care of her had reported to DHS that this woman was, not well. Her home was very cluttered. She was not letting on to her sons probably how dire the situation is, or maybe she didn't even know how dire the situation was. But DHS had texted my friend that they were going to go by for a welfare check with the entire premises of having the police with this woman to remove his mother from her home. It took over 3 hours. How horrible is that for you knocking on the door and somebody with a policeman is going to remove you from your home? And they put her in a facility for about a week for observation, and then put her, as she called it, I went and saw her, in a, quote, hellhole, and it was. And she seemed pretty cognizant to me, and it took about 3 weeks for her sons to come up here for a court date. They had to wait for the court date. There's no sense of them coming up until there was a court date to get custody of their mother and get her out of here as soon as possible.
How is that possible? Can you explain that? Because so the state had custody of her at that point, but how does that happen? So what, a doctor reports the competency of this person. Is that correct?
Yes, and
okay.
I joined the 3 adult sons at the court, and the judge was looking back at us like, why are these people here? Why are we here? Because this was not a typical neglect case. Here's the 3 sons. They're well off. They're out of state, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. I'm here locally, albeit maybe a little too late, but I'm here. And, she was in a place, she was so cognizant, actually, Susie. When I came in and brought her a couple of things, I did. I brought her a little bear that was on her bed. The gentleman had mailed me a key. I brought her a couple of things. And she says, oh, Jackie, well, can you bring me this and this and this and this? So I brought her the DVD player the next day so she could see Downtown Abbey or whatever. And then she says, no, take it all back because it'll be stolen. And I did. And the bear was gone within a week's time. So, yeah.
So let me backtrack a bit. So you say you were there for this woman and the sons. Like, how were you involved in it? How did you, or as a sort of like a unofficial ombudsman? Is that?
Well, no, I was, I do real estate. So then I was asked to prepare a house for sale and get it on the market. And, the boys came in town, got a dumpster, and just started throwing stuff in the dumpster so we could, and I got a landscaper to prepare her home for sale and everything. Her home is vacant. There's no security, nothing. I mean, it's like over July 4th weekend, people know the home is vacant, and some kids had been doing some fireworks in her driveway or something over there in town, and the place had gotten overgrown. Her mail was stacked
So she
up.
was taken out of her home, and you, as a real estate agent, came in and saw what was going on, and so you stepped in as just a good citizen.
Yes.
Who are you, Jackie Ryan? I mean, my God, that's crazy. That's amazing.
Thank you. And that's what I mean, Susie, is my career's been real estate. And then all of a sudden, not only my dad's story, which was about a 6-year story condensed into 30 pages, my mother's story of 6 months condensed into a few pages, but then I'm running into all these people I'm dealing with. This one gentleman, I said, and he was in Texas, I said, you're so lucky your mom's in a nice home down there. He says, well, let me tell you why she is. Home care agency, Maria was taking the money from his mother and giving it to her husband, who was getting divorced from her to go to Mexico, blah, blah, blah. And the CPA ended up calling the son about all this money leaving her account.
It's interesting because it's like what you deal with more often than not in home care is financial abuse, right? Because once somebody like my mother gets into long-term care at that stage in her life, you either have paid down all your money, been made to, so that you can get into a home, because Medicare doesn't take take, do long term. So has to have less than $2,000, whatever it is, depending on the state. And then you can, then Medicaid will step in and cover your facility, your residence. And so, but with home care, you can still be on Medicaid in home care, I imagine, right? Or not?
Certain agencies will accept that. Only certain agencies will accept that, and that's what I've learned, that, maybe DHS could have stepped in then. But if it's private pay, nobody's going to step in. Nobody's going to do anything. When I was having issues with the agency or this particular caregiver that was taking tens of thousands of dollars from my dad, accepting, receiving, however you want to term it, the sheriff's department, DA's, district attorney, nobody. Because why? Because I'm the whiny little daughter. I'm not
exactly.
the victim. Yeah, girl.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You better believe. Yeah. We have PTSD from that.
So when you contact, I mean, we've got a lot to cover as far as like starting off, finding the quote unquote the right person to take care of if there are any. Yeah. Are they having you sign something that says we are not liable for anything that happens? Oh, and if they do say don't have that, obviously your recourse is it can't be enforced, or no one's enforcing it. But there is. What does that look like when you say, okay, I'm going to go with you, and you're going to bring somebody into your home?
Like, what is their liability? Is what you're asking.
My dire mistake. Any of our dire mistakes, we're in a crisis mode. Something happened. Yep. And we're in a crisis mode. I didn't interview 3 or 8 care agencies. I interviewed one, somebody I knew of, and there I went. And you just sign. You could probably do a 30-day out clause, something like that. There is supposed to be something, Dawn, like if you want to hire this caregiver personally and quit paying the agency, you might need to do a termination and pay the agency $10,000-$15,000, give them a termination fee, and then you could hire the caregiver direct. And that was discussed too with this particular caregiver, but it didn't happen. And I tell you, at first I just thought that the owners didn't know what was going on, and I dare say that I considered the owners my friends because I'd stop in their office and they just thought the world of my dad, and and we would talk and all this. But as years wore on, and then when she, the Scaretaker, told me in front of a neighbor that, she'd been in jail before for meth years earlier. And I did find her a picture on mugshot.com, and no wonder she had a beautiful smile because her teeth weren't real. Yeah. And I went to the agency about this. I said, did you know this? And he turned it around. He says, well, yes, but we kind of inherited her, Jackie, because I had moved her from one agency to this agency, because the other agency had the accounts receivable woman embezzling money and stealing from the company and double charging us time and a half. And so I didn't know the background of this caregiver, but my dad liked her, so I moved her, and another lady had already moved into this other agency, so I just moved Claire to this other agency. I would assume, of course, they'd do a background check, and I would assume that they are vetted to take care of our loved ones. Don't you think, when you hire a home care agency? Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's always so baffling to me, like the difference between opening a nursery school or an after school, child care center, whatever the case may be. You have to be vetted, you have to be licensed, you have to be, there's all kinds of regulations. You can be shut down, you can be arrested, and it really speaks to ageism, because, it's like, these are our precious children, which they are, but these are our precious elders.
Yes.
And they're not being treated like that. And uh, it's absurd that there's no regulating body for home care, and it's such a lucrative business. On top of the fraudulent activity, like set aside the fraudulent activity, it's super lucrative. And I'm right to say that Medicare is taking care of a lot of those payments, right?
Yes.
So that's federal money.
Yes. And that's
And
only
why aren't they overseeing that? Because I'll tell you why, Jackie, because it's CMS and they don't care. They just check off the boxes.
check off the boxes. It's easier just to check off the boxes and go on down the road. Who knows, who cares, and go on. Now, you touched on something, Susie, and what I'm working on for legislator is including daycare, teen facilities, disabled, and senior care. Why? Because that would hit the newspaper some. There was a man at a juvenile delinquent teen facility, and then he moved from there to go to a daycare facility, and then he was picked up for molestation of a 3-year-old toddler girl at the daycare. Well, how was he at the daycare when he'd been at the teen facility before, and had he not been, maybe some of this doesn't come up. Maybe the background checks, of course, maybe doesn't bring up something. I don't know, but that's where you got to raise the bar on the caregivers, or raise the bar on the quality of care, which comes in.
Well, right. I mean, bad things are going to happen, but we do what we can to mitigate most of them, right? That's what the goal. So, but if you have nothing in place, then it's really just, like you said, it's like
the Wild West.
It's like the wild, wild west.
It is.
I mean, we have plumbers come into our homes that are bonded and licensed. We have, it's like, that's what people, companies advertise. We're bonded and licensed. Plumbers, construction people, things like that. Or just coming into your home for a day or two, or whatever it is. Not taking care of anyone, just taking care of your plumbing.
I know, and these people are bathing your loved ones. They are feeding your loved ones. And now I'm just going to say this number out loud because it's disgusting and despicable. But from your book, it's $37 billion is stolen each year from financial exploitation of seniors. And that's from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So that's a fact. And that is, and the fact that they are getting away with this. And it's just, it comes down to, oh, well, that happens. Oh, well, it happens.
Yeah.
Because what can you do? No one's really caring because it's no skin off their nose, and it just costs more and takes more time to investigate. Am I right, or am I wrong?
Well, look, it doesn't everything boil down to money?
Yes.
So, okay, even your CNAs, I don't know, how much are your CNAs being paid in California?
Maybe, I think they just, maybe
$17 to $18 to $19 with no benefits, and and being overworked.
Yes.
With too many people, they have too many people to care for, and so they are burnt out or having moral injury, and so we've had an exodus of caregivers. Providers.
Well, and there is a difference. So I was asking about your CNAs. CNAs in a facility here maybe start at $13 to $15 an hour, possibly. These caregivers, though, and this is the difference. A caregiver is not a nurse's aide. A caregiver is there for companionship, to help, to assist, to possibly clean and cook a little bit, but they are not a nurse, and they are not even a CNA. No, they are just caregivers. So our caregivers in the state of Arkansas may make $10 to $12, $13 an hour, while the agency makes around $22, $25 an hour. Wow. And in Florida, it may be $15, $16 an hour, while the agency makes $35 an hour. So there's a huge gap here. And it's like, who would want to work anywhere? Who would want to work for $12 an hour or under a going wage at McDonald's, at Walmart, or someplace, and getting a hiring bonus instead of working, sitting with an old person all day long and watching the westerns with them, and they're going to be gripey, and you got to clean them up sometimes or something, but you don't get paid a whole lot. But hey, maybe you feel entitled, and so you start looking around their house to see what you can get and start manipulating them to see how much money you can get from them. It happens that easy.
Right, right. I mean, I know that, before my mom went into a home, when I had her in my house, and before we had the caregiver that you saw in my film, My Mom and the Girl, who was like our family, and I was using people to help me from agencies. Yes. First of all, the first couple that came had no experience with Alzheimer's at all. And one of them came, she was super nice. And then before the night was over, she goes, "I'm out of here. This is too hard." Yeah. I was like, "What? What do you mean you're out of here? I need you. What are you doing? Where are you going?" And she was like,
You had told the agency your mother had Alzheimer's. So they sent somebody in theory who was, dealt with that before. But no, not at all. And literally left. It was night. It was like 8:00 at night. And she says, "I'm done."
I called the agency. I was like, your caregiver just left. And my mom wasn't a bitch. My mom was, so she had probably, sundowners or whatever. And she was probably being a little bit agitated. And she was like, I can't, which is fine. But it's like, you're sending this woman to I'm depending on her.
Yes.
And
how
you
can't.
Just leave? She just left.
No, that happened with a girl named Kelly, and she was kind of a funky girl. She had dreads, and Dad liked her, and she cooked a good omelet and this and that. And she was around for maybe 4 or 5 months, and then I was on the phone to her, and then I was on the phone to I was out, and I said, "What?" She left, and it's like, I gotta go. I mean, all of a sudden, this girl left. She left. And it's like.
And left your dad alone?
Yeah, left him alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
alone.
It's just crazy to me. So what, in terms of your advocacy, so I know it's state to state, but because, anybody over 65 is going to be on Medicare, and that is federally funded. And we pay for that. That comes out of how much we make through our life, right? So how do you think, what are you going to propose to Congress or to your state, to say, this is what, is that an angle that you're going to take to say, where are you guys? We shouldn't be having to do this.
I have been working 3 years on a couple of local legislators, and let me tell you the process. In any state, I spoke with a lady in California the other day. She's trying to get a hold of one of her state senators. I said, no. You have to go to your House of Representatives first. So the House of Representatives have smaller districts than the senators. The House of Representative man that I was working with is now a state senator. Being in real estate, I had a lot of real estate locations for him to put his sign out to advertise for him to become, House of Representative and then a state senator, and his sister's got ALS. Hey, we can relate. We need some help. And then he's in office, and he's just okay, thank you very much. He's gone, whatever. So that's fine. Who I was in contact with the last 6 months, though, is our Arkansas Association of Alzheimer's policymaker. His name is David Cook. So he and this particular legislator got a law passed about requiring law enforcement to take a couple of continuing education classes when they're renewing, I guess, their license in law on how to deal with people with Alzheimer's.
That's awesome.
So, yay. But it's because I
That's
found
awesome, yeah.
Yes, the Alzheimer's Association, AARP, they keep changing people. I haven't gotten anywhere there. So I am working with this David Cook of the Arkansas Alzheimer's Association. He's got my book. He's got more stories I keep sending him because stories are never ending. More people are coming to me about what to do and everything. And so I am requesting, and it's got to go through a family committee first. It's got to go through a committee, then it goes through the House to get the support of the House, and then it would pass the Senate, and then it would become law. So that's the process, and it may take a year. They just had a session last fall. Now we're going to be into a physical session. So it may be another year, but I will. This is my sole mission, is to get this law passed to have all caregivers of humanity to be fingerprinted, our fingerprints
Vetted. Yeah.
fingerprinted, and it's called FBI Rat Back. It's an ongoing real-time background check. And how did I find out about that? Oh, I was renewing my broker's license in the state of Texas, and I got to fill out extra documentation about FBI Rat Back, and it's an ongoing real-time background check. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And it's like, what is this? And why did this happen? Oh, so in Texas, I guess there were a lot of realtors who'd been in jail and doing real estate transactions, dealing with the public out here. So the Texas Real Estate Commission got this implemented. Okay, great. How about we get this implemented for caregivers? How about nation? How about for anybody who cares for anyone on a one-to-one basis to be FBI Rat Back, ongoing real-time background check. So if Missy is up in Vegas and gets picked up for meth dealing in Vegas, and she's going to go back to the nursing home to go work, it's not that your state department, it runs through your state police. They're not going to do anything, but they would notify their current employer, hey, living facility, did you know Missy was picked up last week for meth? So then the owner, the employer would know. The employer would know. Otherwise, they're going to take their sick leave, vacation time, get it done, and they're still dealing meth or doing meth outside of living.
Right. Okay, let me ask you a question, just playing devil's advocate. So let's say that gets enforced, that gets, that policy comes into your it becomes a state policy.
Okay.
And so Missy gets picked up for meth, and then they alert the agency that she works with, and the agency goes, oh, okay, thank you very much, but they still send her out to homes. Can they do that?
I guess they could still do that. They would know. Yeah.
And then what's the recourse? Yeah, what's your recourse after? Let's say you find all that out, and they knew. Now what? If the law's not going to back it up, that's where oversight. Yeah.
Law. That's it. The law's not.
On a lesser level, and some people might say it's exact same level, I kind of think it is. Only it's not human beings. But when one time, for the first time, I was on a festival circuit with my film, and I had to leave my Yorkie, my beloved Yorkie, with a company called Rover.com because we were having a heat wave, and it was and the film festival was in Palm Springs, so it was going to be in the triple digits. So I wasn't going to bring her because it was way too hot, and she had a collapsed trachea, as Yorkies do. Long story short, the Rover.com, you guys, said, their advertising is that, these are all, excellent people, and this is their vocation. And the woman that I picked, her profile said she was experienced with older dogs and giving medication, yada, yada. My dog died less than 24 hours in her care. And what I came to find out was that none of their dog sitters were vetted or bonded or checked or background checked. None of them were. So it was just, if you wanted to put your profile on Rover.com, you can do it. So and I'm not talking out of school, listeners, because here CBS News did a story on me and two other families who had similar things that happened with Rover.com. And so they're still in business. They're still in business. And I'm sure that there's a lot of really good sitters that are incredible. But the fact is that when you have a company that represents themselves as an aggregator of these kinds of services, you just assume that you're in good hands because you didn't go on Craigslist.
Right. Yes. And to further that conversation, I have used care.com, and care.com is a nationwide, same thing, pet care, senior care, children care, some other errands or something like that. I used them one time for this elderly gentleman before he put his wife into the home, and it worked out okay. For the reason, I say, okay, on behalf of him, he's 86, she's 84, she's got Parkinson's. We're looking for somebody to come in twice a week to do some cooking, cleaning, companionship, and experience with somebody who's got Parkinson's. And so some people would show up on screen and this and that and everything. Okay, we're offering to pay $18 an hour, which is more than an agency would pay anybody else. And I found this lovely lady who had come from California to here in Northwest Arkansas. And I got her, we spoke by phone. She knew I was going to do a background check on her, which we did for extra money. I did call her a reference in California. She had been taking care of a quadriplegic a couple of years earlier or something. And she worked out great for a few months until he had to put his wife into a home. So it worked out. On the other hand, that, yes, I've heard other stories about care.com. You cannot ever be too careful. There's nobody to talk to at care.com. It's you hire the person, you fire the person.
Right. Right. So they're just aggregating, and it's really a platform for people to go to, and they don't take responsibility for, the services. It's like, here you go. This is a one-stop shop where you can go and find people and then it's on you. It's incumbent on you as the customer to do exactly what you did, Jackie, which is to do the background check, to do the interviews, to do everything, because you can't assume that ever that anybody is just sight unseen right for the job.
No.
And so, which is so scary. It's really scary.
Something comes to mind, and why I did my book is, and the same with you, Susie, with your background. You were filming, you were documenting. I was documenting things going on. I was documenting so much. I was making copies of the care sheets and this and that. I was getting into the company's business because I eventually started picking up the care sheets and started highlighting, this box is blank and this is, my dad's constipated. Well, he's in the hospital. Why? Well, he's got pecan pie, pork chops, and corn on the cob. What do you think? I mean, I'm not in this business, but what do you think? And I was getting in their business, and it got to the point, what the reason I did my book was I had so much documentation. It's like, okay, other people would just say, I am so glad that chapter of my life is over. I'm glad it's done. Close the book and go on. But when I started realizing it's not just me, it's all these other adult children out here that we're dealing with the same problems, and the same problems, different places, whatever, and COVID and all these people, they're not qualified to take care of our loved ones. They are not. When you, of course, assume, hey, if you're going to use a realtor, you assume the realtor should know something about real estate. We should. So, you do your film business. That's what you do. I expect you to do the best you can do because that's your business. You hire a home care agency. You put your mother in a in a home, you expect them to take the best care of humanity because that's their business. It's really simple. It should be simple as that. But it's
I
not.
agree. I agree. I agree. Um,
So, but what a big question. Oh, okay, I was going to say
Yes.
there's a huge question, and then maybe it's too big, which is I need to hire somebody. What are the red flags? And I know there's no way to guarantee anything, but how do we mitigate the risk when we start to go out and start looking for someone to take care?
Okay. What you need to do: interview at least 3 agencies or 5, 8 individuals. I'm saying now bypass the agency, hire direct. But if you've got to hire an agency or hire direct, ask the person if they mind having a background check. You can conduct a background check. Ask about their record. Ask them, what would you do if my dad had a temper tantrum and threw a glass of milk on the floor? How would you respond to that? Or how would you respond if my mother says there's people in her house and this little girl keeps running around the room in here? How do you respond to that? And that was a very good qualifying question because I was asking that of some of these people for this Parkinson's lady. And somebody say, oh, well, that's just not real. We won't look at that or something. Well, it is real. It is real to them as you and I speaking. And,
that's right.
and it doesn't matter if it's nothing to argue about. This other lady who's in a home right now, she would say, well, how's your dad? And I say, he's fine. He's out there checking the cows and he's going to go fishing tonight. He's been dead for 4 years. Does it matter to her? I mean, just go along with it. That's
right.
the correct answer. So those are kind of some flags there. Also, Dawn, I felt grateful. And so, I won a pot of money of $60 one night at a elk club or something. And Claire came by and I said, hey, here's you an extra 30. Oh, really? Well, yeah, here, enjoy. I really appreciate your help. And she took the money. She's employed by the agency. They're not supposed to accept money. Oh, she shouldn't have accepted money from me. Okay.
Right.
And so that, I didn't know. I was just grateful that, and that's part of the story. And that's something else is Claire, 1, she showed up. 2, she showed up on time. 3, she was engaging, had a bright smile. And it's like, oh, she's fantastic. Because when I hired, before, even through the agency, the same agencies, somebody would show up, they might show up late, they might not show up, so I was really excited. And this woman, I felt like I had a new best friend. But, it's
right.
all a freaking business. It's a business. I did not keep her at arm's length because I was just so excited that she took care of Dad. Dad liked her. Dad liked her. Dad liked her a lot later. Not fight that either. So, to answer your question, Dawn, those are some flags. Say, if you do hire them and you want to give them an extra $50 and they are employed by an agency, see if they accept it or not. So that would be one.
So you're checking on their honesty. You're checking on their education and experience, because at the very least they should be experienced in like whether you have Parkinson's, dementia, any of the dementias, Alzheimer's, a lot of those kinds of behaviors that we're not used to are very, very common. Yes. And if you don't know how to deal with them, if someone's seeing something and having a hallucination and seeing there's a little fire in the corner, you got to go, I'll get it. Let me get that out right now. And you turn that light off, or you cover it with a piece of paper, whatever it is. Yes. So if they don't know that, that's just basic. That's
That's it.
basic for someone who is supposed to be a professional caregiver.
Mm.
So if they don't know that, it's not your job, nor do you have time as a family caregiver. It's obviously if you're paying for someone to come in to have to educate them.
Yes, yes, and even my mom, which I went. There was a time I was dealing with two different agencies at the same time. My parents have been divorced 30 years, whatever. They live 30 minutes away. So dad and the deal going on nearby here, and then my mother and having to spend the nights over there and deal with the different people coming in. And my mom lying there, and it's like, and I'm saying this because it's just so small but meant so much, is she loved watermelon. And the caregiver said, well, she didn't eat anything all day long. I'm going, oh. And but my mom was lying there with the cancer, and I would give my mother a bite of watermelon like the size of my small finger first joint. Not my thumb, but I don't know how I know this. And I gave that to my mother, and she's, oh, that just tastes so good because it's cool.
Cool, yeah.
Chew and to do that. And, how do I know this? I don't know how I know this, but you just know this. Good grief. And so that was something that way. The first week with my mother with this other agency is when this woman came in. She was coming in late, and she stole my mom's narcotics. She stole my mother's narcotics. I reported the agency. The agency just moved her on to another client/victim. They did not fire her until 45 days later. I've got the police report right here. Yes, she admitted, she did a written confession. She stole my mom's narcotics for her ailing mother-in-law, Oxycontin. She was selling it out there, and no, there was no recourse for her.
That's another big problem too.
Narcotics.
Is narcotics, and a lot of caregivers that
Yes.
are not on the up and up.
Right.
That's another abuse that happens as well. It is, it goes, look at, we're almost an hour into this conversation, and I feel like we just
3 hours.
we just started it, and it really speaks to what you call the wormhole of healthcare, because it really is a wormhole.
Yeah.
And I played whack-a-mole. Like there's like wormholes everywhere, and I was playing whack-a-mole for a full year last year, and I was like so exhausted and so sad and so disillusioned.
Yes.
And and I think that it's going to take a lot of me's, a lot of you's, a lot of everybody's to make a huge collective change, because and really bang the drum really loud, because just looking at the picture of your dad, your sweet dad with those bruises and the stitches, and which listen, people fall, I get it, but it should be treated as something terrible. It should be like very, very. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but or maybe the listeners don't. Falls, bed sores. Those are never events. Those should never happen. Caregivers, those are for hundreds of years. Florence Nightingale has a list of what is the responsibility of a good nurse. And one of the things is your patient should never fall, and your patient should never have a bed sore, and right? And I mean those are basic things, or a UTI. They shouldn't have that. So these are never events. And so when they happen, you have to take it seriously and say, what's going on? This is not good care.
Right.
And you can't let people say to you, like I just said, people fall. Yeah, they do, but they shouldn't.
They shouldn't.
They shouldn't. That should be the minority, but it is the majority.
Majority. He had fallen 4 times in 1 year under a different inept caregiver. Not the caretaker, but he fallen with her a couple times too. But when he fell the 4th time and broke his elbow, and he's like 88 years old, and of course he's a smoker, and I spent that night with him, and I called the agency. Oh, I was removed as his healthcare POA also. Yeah, so that was a whole story. But I called it.
You'll have to do a take. We'll have to either everybody read her book, read this book,
Yes.
because and get all those details, because the fact that you could be removed as the POA, and that's another thing that happens. And in the documentary, I talk a little bit about it. The fact that there's a lot of intimidation that goes on, where they, caregivers, family caregivers, will be told, we'll report you for abuse.
Yeah.
We'll get your loved one as a guardian of the state. We'll take them away from you, and so you have to don't report us. You got to and basically they feel they're intimidating you. If that's happening, you need to go to your adult protective services, or I would say ombudsman, because most of them are great, but most of them are toothless. So go to your protective services, your adult protective services,
law, maybe an elder law attorney,
and get it on record what's going on, because do not feel intimidated, and if they're intimidating you, that means that they have no scruples. Right. So best to get ahead of them, right?
Yes. I'll dare say, since we are unfiltered, I have a negative review on my Amazon on my book, and it's somebody who's got a vendetta against me. I was removed as my dad's POA because I was making questions of spending $300 in groceries within about 8 days for this little skinny man. $300 of groceries that went walking out the door. And I am, in fact, still in contact with one of the caregivers that was wrongly fired. And that's why I was removed as my dad's POA, because I was into the home care agency's business too much. I was making too many questions. And I lived like 4 minutes from my dad. Who else best to take care of my dad than me, to be so close by? So,
this is a problem too. That's a huge problem. And trust me, I've talked to many caregivers who have been intimidated, and it's unconscionable, and that's another thing. So we got a big system that's broken, and we need to, until it gets fixed, everybody needs to be on their toes and really know what's going on and educate yourself. Yes. If they're in a facility, educate yourself. This documentary, I hope, will enlighten everybody as to what's really going on. I'm not a person that likes to tell you that I'm not telling you that the sky is falling. That's not me. I'm Pollyanna. I want to think everything's good, but this is the truth. This is what's going on. It's real, and it happens, and it's ugly.
Yes,
it's ugly.
Yes,
terrible. Thank you so much. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to say?
Oh no, thank you, Susie and Don, for bringing the abuse of the elderly to the light. The light shines, the cockroaches run. And we have to all work together to bring this to fruition. I can't do it by myself. No. You can't do it by yourself. We all have to work together, and there's so many different facets going on out here affecting our seniors that will eventually affect us 10 years from now or more if we don't take care of it. We've got to get taken care of by the time we get 80 years old or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Or just sick, because it's not just old people. It's, I interviewed several people in their 40s and in their 50s. And, if you are beholden to a facility, you are dealing with the same issues. Maybe a little less of the ageism, but there's going to be the ableism that'll just make up for it. So, yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Susie.
Thank you. There you go. It's the same. It's the same. It's the same fight. Just a different, different venue. Yeah. It's crazy, right? Like, it just seems like it's so daunting, but we have to stay positive, because,
I know.
We need more Jackies. We need more Dons and Susies and all my caregiver advocates out there, our Ellens and our and our Elizabeths and Christinas, and they know who they are.
Yes.
There's so many of us out there, and it's in it, but we can't do it alone. If we need a freaking gigantic village. We need
Well,
a
yeah, because
country.
yes, because every day we find out that there's more and more, and now this is just another arena. I mean, it's in the same world, in a different
Right.
arena that's like you say, exactly the same, and it all,
Yeah.
in the long run, comes down to money, as we found
Yeah.
out. It's
Follow the money.
and but
Yeah.
you know
I
what? We got
know.
to try to remain positive.
We have to remain positive and we have to just keep putting one foot in front of each other, and do it the
Yep.
best that we can do, and just we have to do it. There's nothing more important. There really isn't.
And that's why we're doing the documentary, No Country for Old People, which, by the way, our shameless plug, we are still looking for people to help, help financially so we can finish this
We're
thing.
halfway through.
And we have a wonderful GoFundMe, and you can go to the National Consumer Voice for.
Quality long-term care. It's a mouthful, but they do so much. They do so much, and they're our fiscal sponsor. You can go there. We get more money if you if you go directly there. We don't have to pay GoFundMe their percentage. This is how desperate we are. We need to get to the finish line. This movie's going to be impactful. It's going to be powerful. We give you our word on that. I mean, we are in the groove and we are making it happen. So we're very, very, very proud of it. We have over 75 incredible interviews. I know if you listen to us, you've heard this before, but it doesn't matter. We're telling you again because we have a
Yes.
wormhole of healthcare that we need to get through and clean it out. So let's do it. And because
Yes.
I love you all, and I love you, Dawn, because the world,
Yes.
yep.
I
And
love you, Susan.
thank you.
And you know why?
Why?
That's because love is powerful.
Yes,
Love is contagious,
it is.
and love
There's
conquers
O's.
all. We thank everyone for watching or listening, and please do subscribe and follow and tell people about us, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, and one other plug. We are on the Whole Care Network. You can find us there. It's going to be great. We're going to be there. So we'll keep you
It's all
posted.
new.
It's all new. But until then, you know where to find us, and have a wonderful rest of your day, weekend, night, whatever it is. Bye.